But truth. Now, coming up, we're going to be going over the budget. Boring. Well, oftentimes when you do talk about the budget, it can get pretty dry. But not if you're finding out things that are hidden, things that are said that are not true, and where your money's going and what it means for the future, how this budget was crafted, because we're 17 trillion in the hole. What are we going to be after the budget grain in 10 years? I'll tell you. Why are you talking that way? Because I just wanted to emphasize it. Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant Drama. We're going to be 25 trillion in the hole. Now, for a group that the left oftentimes talks about our children, I'd like to talk about intergenerational theft. It's not good. I don't like saddling our children with that debt. Well, they already have it. They had it under Bush, you know. He ran those deficits all the way up to $462 billion. He was called unpatriotic for that. Yeah, I know. I know. And who said that? A man who had trillion-dollar deficits for 4 of the 5 years. And I think they're going to total, the deficits are going to total over time as they decrease. Now, there's projections in 2022 that they'll reach $1 trillion plus, and that's the yearly, but a total deficit and then adding to the overall debt. I digress. Here's the thing. Pete Sepp is from the National Taxpayers Union, so we're going to talk about the budget with him. We're also going to talk about the IRS scandal and exactly what we need to know, the fundamentals, because there are some talking points with the budget that once again are going to be used to mislead the American people. And you can agree or disagree. I ask you to check what I say out. Please do. Always feel free. I'm not telling you not to watch places like MSNBC. You can do that because over time you're going to discover what I know. This is nothing but truth. And what I advocate for has worked in the past. Yeah. You believe you're right? Yes, I do. I respect the fact that other people can have a different point of view, and there are situations that are fluid and can change. Absolutely. But 2 plus 2 is just not going to equal 5. Sorry. So, Pete Sepp will be with us, and we'll run through the budget with him and the tricks and the things that you'll hear on the Sunday shows. This is important to you because yes, we know who's in control, and we know that God is absolutely in control and bigger than any policy or otherwise. But we also have an obligation as Americans, as Christians, to protect our freedoms. And part of that is economic freedom and saddling our next generation with debt. Make it harder for them to use their God-given gifts well, and to benefit both societally in the sense of benefiting society, but also benefit themselves. Remember, money is neutral. It can be bad. It could be good. It could be used in different ways. But as those are directed by the Lord, and are looking to him for counsel on where to direct those dollars, I think, hey, wow, that's a good place. That's the best place. And oftentimes that is taking away from the false god of government. I say this nightly because we are experiencing it. One of the things the government is tasked to do, the federal government, is to protect us. Chris Matthews, we'll get to him in just a moment. But Paul Ryan ran as the vice presidential candidate for Mitt Romney. And he was asked about a clip that we've played for you. We're going to play a part of it again. Thank you to Megyn Kelly or Greta Van Susteren, who put this together. But this is Paul Ryan, Representative Paul Ryan, commenting on what Mitt Romney said to Barack Obama, President Obama, during the debate about Russia and Vladimir Putin. Here's the exchange and what Paul Ryan had to say last night about the election of 2012. Roll it.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War's been over for 20 years. But, Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s, just like the social policies of the 1950s and the economic policies of the 1920s.
There are moments, Martha, when I just look down, shake my head, and say, I can't believe we lost to these guys. This is one of those moments. Mitt was right. I think the president was incredibly naive on his Russia policy. His reset has been a total failure. And I think this is what happens when a superpower projects weakness in its foreign and defense policy. Aggression fills that vacuum, and I think that's what's happening right now.
Now, I know former Secretary of Defense Bill Gates spoke to the issue of criticizing the president and the weakness of America. I think it was a general statement because that's all I caught. But when Paul Ryan was addressing Martha McCallum on Fox News, and can't believe that, I think he is responding in a way that many of us felt the very night of the election. And your vote, your business, not about R's or D's. But for those of you just tuning in to talk radio, maybe this is the first time you've ever heard nothing but truth, I welcome you. I appreciate you. You are welcome here. We've been saying this from the beginning and exposing it. The reason it didn't get the play was because we didn't have the mainstream media doing its job. Now, that's not whining, that's just reality. The reason Ted Cruz was portrayed as he was post-election, Senator Ted Cruz was right spot on. Seton Motley, kudos to Seton Motley for pointing that out. He'll be with us Friday, by the way, president of Less Government, Seton Motley. He talked about the disaster that has taken place, people losing their health insurance, for example. Now, in relation to the weakness invites aggression, as Donald Rumsfeld has said, and I believe Reagan spoke to that, Eisenhower coined peace through strength. These are not new concepts. This is a reality. And now you say, well, what about what you're going to do specifically in the Ukraine right now? And we have Russian soldiers in the Crimea Peninsula taken over, which is Ukrainian territory. It's part of the Ukraine under agreement and international law. That's a reality. The reality also that Putin's denying they're Russian soldiers when Fox News is on the ground. Shepard Smith is sitting there going, hey, I've talked to them. They're Russian. They've said they're Russian. So a lot of games. What can we do? What leverage do we have targeting the powerful within Russia to make sure that Putin feels the heat domestically, turn the tables? We got more leverage than we think. Uniting a coalition with Europe, obviously, but making the mission first, not the coalition first. A really good point that Donald Rumsfeld pointed out the other day, and being very clear with that. Also, speaking to freedom, but we have a situation. I mean, you heard that exchange. I posted that up on the Facebook a little while back, and then I posted Ronald Reagan speaking at the Brandenburg Gate, famous speech where he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and was remarking on it. But getting back to what President Obama talked about with 1980 called, and they want their foreign policy back, that's the President of the United States. Now, a listener to the broadcast and somebody who commented on Facebook, comments regularly, blessed to have him, Camden pointed out the president would make that kind of remark in the first place. 1980 called? They want I mean, juvenile. He's exactly right. But the reasoning and the substance behind President Obama's foreign policy is quite thin. So what must the left do to defend the likes of President Obama and a foreign policy that has sent mixed signals and undermine people who desire to be free everywhere? They must make war itself the enemy, because that's the idea of what President Obama believes. The enemy's not the enemy. War itself is the enemy. Chris Matthews, speaking in his sum-up statement, Chris Matthews is Tingles, Blondie, Throw Up My Leg, MSNBC, Hardball, spoke last night, remarking on a documentary apparently that Rachel Maddow is doing on the Iraq War. MSNBC. There's a point to this. Here, Chris Matthews is speaking about the Iraq War. Roll it.
Let me finish tonight with this. I've been watching a screener of Rachel Maddow's documentary on the Iraq War and why we did it. And two realities come out of that title itself. One, it's been an open question. Does anyone still believe the reasons for that U.S. invasion and government overthrow that the Bush-Cheney team threw down in the first place, that Iraq was going to bomb us over here with a nuclear weapon, that there would be a mushroom cloud over this country, that Saddam Hussein would somehow build and fly a nuclear weapon to the United States and then drop it here so that we could obliterate him and his country? I never believed that argument. I never believed that the Bush-Cheney crowd believed it. It was a selling piece. I believe the war was fought because Bush and Cheney and the neocons wanted to fight it, wanted to overthrow and kill Hussein, just as they have wanted us knocking off every other leader in the region, from Iran to Libya to Syria, who didn't play ball with us. I think knocking off opponents is in Dick Cheney's brain soup. It's how he thinks.
Okay. Regime change should be in the brain soup of any American president. Now, it's not simply knocking somebody off, droning them. No, that's President Obama in the way of the whack-a-mole strategy, in essence. No, it's looking at leaders that are not advocating policies that promote freedom and are encouraging or aiding groups that are killing innocents. Now, it could be looked at in a number of different ways, and you can look at different regimes. The bottom line, Chris Matthews, I'm not going to get to his own views on Iraq and how clouded they are, but the idea is this. We went to Iraq because they posed a threat, and a growing threat. Intelligence agencies signed off on that. Democrats and Republicans agreed. When they saw a political opportunity, the left in this country put American security on the altar of politics and accused the president of lying. The president was merely quoting former Democratic leaders themselves in what he did and how he carried it out. There was a strategy to it, and there were many reasons we were over there and doing it. So Bush lied, people died. That meme is just exactly that. It's false, and they continue to advance it. Why are they doing it? That's a good question. Chris Matthews continued. Roll it.
And Bush agreed with the way Cheney thinks. The second reality that comes out of Rachel Maddow's title for Thursday night's documentary is the Iraq War was this country's war. We decided to fight it. We decided to invade another sovereign country. We decided to go in and knock off the government and kill anyone who got in our way. It was us all the way. And now the same people who blew the bugles for us to invade that country, Iraq, are now blowing the bugle because some other country, Russia, did something a little bit like it. Well, the big difference is, need I say, the tens of thousands of bodies the Bush-Cheney crowd left in their trail.
And we'll never know the bodies in the sense of if we did nothing. But we had 17 UN resolutions moving forward. We had a growing threat, and a threat that was verified, also a past history of using chemical weapons, and that's Saddam Hussein. So when we are evaluating these arguments, why is Chris Matthews doing this and forgetting our partners? Well, we look at the partners, and we have a country list, including Poland and Australia, United Kingdom, Czech Republic, Yeah, Georgia. I mean, you discount our allies in this. It wasn't a unilateral move. And they're trying to do this. Why is this? I always look at MSNBC as the arm of the administration because they have to look at any type of military force that they use as the enemy, as something that is just inherently, it's wrong to do because they're not willing to use it because they don't understand our enemy. Plus, they put in the straw man, what are we going to do? Military force. Nobody's really brought up military force other than supporting the Ukrainian government that now exists because of the ouster of a president that didn't play by the rules and was engaging in, quite frankly, selling out his own people. So when you have that, I mean, why do you have to do that? You have to make action the enemy as opposed to the enemy. And you have to do that, you have to distort and lie about history. That's the truth. Nothing but truth. AFR talk.